A few years ago, if you opened YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter and searched for tech content, you would mostly see the same things repeated over and over again. New iPhone reviews, Windows tips and tricks, gaming laptop comparisons, and the latest apps promising to boost productivity. Linux, if it appeared at all, was treated like a niche hobby for programmers, with thick glasses typing mysterious commands into a black terminal window. It was something too complicated, something not for normal people, something you only installed if you wanted to suffer for the sake of being different. But suddenly, almost out of nowhere, something changed. Now you can't scroll for 5 minutes without seeing a creator say they switched to Linux, or a thumbnail screaming that Linux just replaced their Windows PC, or a video promising that this free operating system is faster, safer, and better than anything Microsoft or Apple sells. So what happened? Why are tech influencers, of all people, suddenly talking about Linux like it's the future? If you really look closely, this shift didn't happen overnight. It's been building quietly for years. Influencers tend to follow trends that solve real problems for their audience. And for a long time, Linux simply didn't feel relevant to everyday users. Back then, installing Linux meant wrestling with drivers, searching forums for fixes, and praying your Wi-Fi card would even work. Content creators couldn't recommend something that might break halfway through setup because their viewers would blame them. Stability matters when your reputation is on the line. But today, that barrier is mostly gone. Modern Linux distributions install in minutes, detect hardware automatically, and come with sleek interfaces that look just as polished as Windows or macOS. When influencers tried Linux again out of curiosity, many were genuinely surprised. It wasn't the scary, nerd-only system they remembered. It just worked. At the same time, the tech world around them started to change in ways that pushed people away from the mainstream options. Windows updates began to feel heavier, slower, and more intrusive. Forced restarts, background telemetry, advertisements in the start menu, and constant prompts to sign into Microsoft accounts slowly chipped away at user trust. Every new version promised improvement, but somehow felt more bloated. For a content creator who needs reliability and speed to edit videos, render projects, and upload content on tight schedules, this friction becomes more than just annoying. It becomes expensive. Time lost to slow performance or random update issues directly affects income. So when someone tries Linux and suddenly their older laptop runs smoother than ever, that's a story worth sharing. And influencers love sharing discoveries that feel like hidden gems. There's also the simple reality that tech influencers need fresh content. Reviewing the same phones and laptops every year gets repetitive. The audience gets bored. Creators get bored. Linux, on the other hand, feels new and unexplored for many viewers. Switching operating systems is dramatic. It's a narrative. It creates tension and curiosity. Can I really use Linux full-time? Will my apps still work? Is it actually better? That uncertainty makes for compelling videos. A creator can document the entire journey, from installation to daily use, turning a personal experiment into a series of engaging content pieces. Linux isn't just software. It's a story engine, but it goes deeper than novelty. Privacy has become a huge topic online, especially after countless data leaks, tracking scandals, and targeted ads that feel a little too personal. People are more aware than ever that their computers are constantly collecting information. Windows and macOS, despite their strengths, are still tied to massive corporations whose business models rely on data. Linux feels different. It's open source. Anyone can inspect the code. There's no hidden telemetry pipeline secretly sending your activity somewhere. That transparency resonates strongly with influencers who often position themselves as advocates for digital freedom and control. When they talk about Linux, they're not just talking about performance. They're talking about ownership. About having a computer that belongs to you, not a company. Another big factor is the rise of creator tools that finally work perfectly on Linux. For years, one of the main reasons influencers avoided Linux was software compatibility. If your video editor or design tool didn't run, the system was useless. But now things look very different. Applications like Blender, OBS Studio, GIMP, Krita, DaVinci Resolve, and countless developer tools run beautifully on Linux. Many of these are either open source or officially supported. Some even perform better because Linux uses system resources more efficiently. A creator can record, edit, render, and stream without paying for expensive licenses. That's incredibly attractive, especially for small or new creators trying to keep costs low. Free and powerful is a combination that spreads fast through word of mouth. Gaming also played a surprisingly huge role. For a long time, Linux gaming was a joke. You either dual-booted Windows or gave up on most modern titles. But with the introduction of tools like Proton and platforms like Steam Deck, the situation changed dramatically. Suddenly, thousands of Windows games could run on Linux with almost no effort. Influencers who focus on gaming or PC builds started experimenting and discovered that Linux wasn't just viable, it was sometimes smoother. Better frame pacing, fewer background processes, and more control over the system meant fewer distractions. When the Steam Deck launched running Linux under the hood, it quietly validated the platform in the eyes of millions. If Valve trusts Linux for gaming hardware, maybe it's not so fringe after all. Then there's the aesthetic appeal. This might sound shallow, but it matters more than people think. Modern Linux desktops are beautiful. You can customize almost everything. Themes, icons, animations, layouts, widgets. Influencers love showing off clean, minimal setups or futuristic interfaces that look nothing like a standard Windows desktop. A customized Linux desktop looks unique on camera. It becomes part of their brand. Instead of every creator showing the same interface, each one can design something personal. That visual identity is incredibly valuable in a crowded content space. Linux gives them creative freedom, not just in what they do, but in how their environment looks while they do it. Cost is another quiet but powerful reason. Hardware prices keep rising, subscription fees keep piling up, and not everyone can afford the latest machine every year. Linux has a reputation for breathing life into older devices. A 5-year-old laptop that struggles with Windows can feel fast again with a lightweight Linux distro. Influencers testing this often show side-by-side comparisons, and the results are impressive. Faster boot times, lower memory usage, smoother performance. Viewers watching at home think, maybe I don't need to buy a new computer. Maybe I just need new software. That's empowering. And empowering content spreads like wildfire. There's also a cultural shift happening among younger tech enthusiasts. Many of them grew up watching open-source projects thrive. They're comfortable with GitHub, community forums, and collaborative development. Linux fits naturally into that mindset. It feels modern and ethical rather than corporate and locked down. Influencers often reflect the attitudes of their audience, so as more viewers become curious about open source, creators follow. They start making tutorials, reviews, and experiments to meet that demand. Over time, what was once niche becomes mainstream simply because enough people are talking about it. Interestingly, big companies themselves have indirectly boosted Linux's reputation. Cloud computing, servers, containers, and development environments mostly run on Linux behind the scenes. Developers know this, startups know this. Even Windows now integrates Linux through tools like WSL. So when influencers talk about learning to code or building projects, Linux feels like the real environment professionals use. Recommending it gives their advice more credibility. It's not just a hobby OS anymore. It's what powers much of the internet. That connection between Linux and professional work makes it more attractive to ambitious viewers. Another reason influencers are embracing Linux is the sense of community. When you use mainstream systems, you're mostly interacting with official support channels and corporate documentation. With Linux, you step into a world of forums, Discord servers, Reddit threads, and passionate volunteers eager to help. Problems become shared puzzles rather than isolated frustrations. Influencers often tap into this community for ideas and collaboration. They find guides, tips, and customizations that turn into entire videos. The ecosystem feeds itself. The more people join, the more content there is to create. There's also something psychological about choosing Linux. It feels rebellious in a small, satisfying way. You're opting out of the default path. Influencers love positioning themselves as early adopters or independent thinkers. Saying I ditched Windows and went Linux sends a message that they're not just following trends, they're challenging them. That narrative aligns perfectly with the influencer persona. It makes them look knowledgeable and bold, which builds trust with their audience. At the same time, Linux has simply matured. Many of the old complaints are outdated. Drivers are better. Interfaces are friendlier. Software stores are simpler. Automatic updates work smoothly. Hardware compatibility has improved massively. If you tried Linux 10 years ago and hated it, today's experience feels like a completely different product. Influencers rediscovering it often express genuine surprise. That authenticity comes through on camera. Viewers can tell when someone is actually impressed, rather than reading from a script. All of these factors combine into a perfect storm. Frustration with mainstream operating systems, improvements in Linux usability, better software support, growing privacy concerns, the need for fresh content, and a community eager to help newcomers. Influencers sit right at the intersection of trends and storytelling, so they naturally amplify whatever feels exciting and useful. Right now, Linux checks both boxes. And once a few big creators start talking about something, momentum builds fast. Smaller creators copy the idea. Viewers get curious and try it themselves. They leave comments asking for more tutorials. That demand encourages even more content. Before you know it, Linux goes from obscure to everywhere. It becomes part of the conversation simply because everyone is already talking about it. What's really interesting is that many influencers aren't even presenting Linux as a perfect replacement. They're just saying it's finally practical. It's no longer an experiment reserved for experts. It's a legitimate option for normal people. That subtle shift in framing makes a huge difference. Instead of Linux is for geeks, the message becomes Linux might actually make your life easier. That's far more compelling. So when you see another thumbnail about someone switching to Linux, or calling it the future of computing, it's not just hype. It's the result of years of gradual progress, finally reaching a tipping point. Technology caught up. User expectations changed. And influencers, always searching for the next meaningful story, found one hiding in plain sight. In the end, the sudden flood of Linux content isn't really sudden at all. It's the natural outcome of a system that quietly grew up while everyone was distracted. Now it's polished, powerful, and ready for everyday use. And for creators looking to save money, gain control, protect privacy, and stand out from the crowd, it makes perfect sense. Linux stopped being a risky experiment and started feeling like a smart choice. Once that perception changed, the conversation exploded. And judging by the momentum, this isn't a passing trend. It's just the beginning of a much bigger shift in how people think about their computers and who really controls them.